The first major chapter you need to study is Chapter 3, Learning Characteristics and Learning Principles. This is a huge on the exam. You need to study visual learners, kinesthetic learners, motivation. A lot of people can't motivate other people. You have to know how to motivate to be an instructor. Adult learning, barrier learning, audio learning. You need to know all different learning styles. As an instructor, they love scenarios about that. For example, what teaching methods work best for hands-on learners? Or how should an instructor help a struggled student? You need to think like an educator, not a beauty professional. That's how it gets tricky. The next section is going to be Chapter 4, which focuses on methods of teaching and learning. This is also a big section on your exam as well. So you need to study discussion learning, role-playing, projects, hands-on learning, lecture methods, demonstration methods. One thing you need to understand is advantages and disadvantages of each teaching method. For example, you need to know what teaching method works best in certain situations. Then we have Chapter 5, which is Program Development and Lesson Plans. This chapter focuses on lesson plans, learning objective, curriculum organization, theory lessons, practical lessons, and time management. As an educator, depending on where you teach, whether it's like a community college, private colleges, you have to use your time wisely. You have to do your weekly lesson plans. You need to be meeting with your students weekly, giving them updates as well. Now, the outline that I'm using is from Illinois, but I feel like this is standard across the world as well. Understand like curriculum delivery processes, utilizing time management and techniques. So that chapter is very important. Another major chapter will be Chapter 7, Communicating Confidently. So study verbal communication, nonverbal communication, active listening, body language, professionalism, your tone of voice, and your classroom communication. Being an instructor, you're going to catch everything. And that's how you know what's wrong with this student. She coming in, she not herself. She's catching an attitude, don't want to do anything today. She won't want to talk to you, but you can read her body language and see if something is wrong. So as a teacher, you have to know how to like read your room as well. Communication is honestly like the biggest part of being an educator. You have to know what's important, and you have to know how to communicate with your students. You're dealing with adult students here, so you're dealing with everyone 18 and older. Unless you're an educator in maybe a vocational high school, then you have your high schoolers. But for the most part, you're dealing with adult education. Now, let's talk about classroom management, because yes, this will be on the exam. So study Chapter 9, which is Classroom Management and Supervision. So this chapter focuses on classroom control, clinic supervision, professional behavior, conflict resolution, attendance, and how to handle disruptive students. Sometimes students come in with attitudes and they just don't want to do anything. You got to figure out how to motivate them and talk to them to get them to open up and trust you. The exam wants you to know how to be professional and handle classroom situations. Another chapter that's very important is Chapter 10, Challenges to Learning. Study learning disabilities, test anxiety, ADHD, accommodations, language barrier, and student struggle. A lot of times I feel like adult students are ashamed of this. they won't tell you that they can't read, they don't like reading out loud, they have test anxiety. So it's certain things that you have to do to and observe to pick up on things as well. And honestly, I think this is a real important chapter, because that's going to make and break your student. If they can't process the material, they're going to struggle. So it's up to you as an educator to catch that quickly, in order to help them be more efficient. Now let's talk about chapter 11, assessing, progressing, and advising students. This section is more on grading, evaluation, feedback, practical exams, written exams, student progress, and advising students. Not so huge section on the test. It does ask you infection control safety questions, but it asks you at an educator standpoint. So it will ask you about like cleaning, sanitation, like PPE, where to hang your license. As an instructor, what do you supposed to wear? I have all of that in my stand store available on just little state questions that they might throw in there, but that's a case-by-case scenario. This is not the type of exam where every question is straight memorization. You're not going to remember everything. They say it's common sense, but it's hard to turn off your brain as a beauty professional because you think you're going to be doing a test on beauty, but it's more focused on teaching you how to be a instructor. A lot of the questions are scenario based. So it will say like, what should an instructor do first if a student is struggling academically? Or which teaching method is more effective in a practical demonstration? It'll ask you questions like that. Another thing to study is heavy on the professionalism. Answering your questions, I always think, what would most professional educators do? Another thing, I do have flashcards available for the language and verbiage that you need to use on this exam. Flashcards help me out a lot with like learning styles, teaching methods, infection control, the terminology that needs to be used. That really helped me out a lot as well. So I would say do not rush through the questions. Read each single question carefully, because sometimes one word can mess up the entire question. Like words like best, first, most effective, least effective. That was one thing that stood out as well. I would say another thing that helped me is teaching the information out loud. Preparing my classroom, that helped me out a lot. That's how I started making the videos. You saw me in the classroom at first. I was actually practicing, like teaching, but on camera. That helped me out a lot with the teaching methods and everything. And now let's talk about those chapters one more time. Chapters 3, chapters 4, chapters 5, chapter 7, chapter 9, and chapter 10 and 11. Those chapters are going to be the most important chapters of the exam. And honestly, being an educator, it's very rewarding. It's deeper than just teaching the student services. You're mentoring them. You're helping building their confidence. You're probably the only one rooting for them to graduate. You're preparing to change someone's life. This is why I'm so passionate about beauty education. That's why I also continue to make resources to help study and educational content. I really do love teaching. That's very passionate, something that I'm very passionate about. So you have to really want to do the job. You can't do this for a paycheck because it's not even a lot. You're not going to be making a lot teaching when you first start out. But that's probably a whole nother video for us to talk about. Another thing I want to mention again, if you are someone that needs accommodations and you have like test anxiety, ADHD, get a letter from your physician or your psychiatrist. Get those so you can take your test effectively. If you need that extra time, do not feel ashamed. Please don't wait until the last minute either. But you are able to get accommodations on your test if you need it. When you're about to take your exam, slow down, read the questions carefully, think like an educator, focus on professionalism. Slightly thinking about making some practice question videos, state board real scenarios, maybe lesson plan tutorials, infection control breakdown. So definitely let me know in the comments what videos you want to see next. And again, if you want any extra practice tests or flashcards, I have a Master Educator's State Board Success Kit that I created. It has 250 questions. It has flashcards, tools, how to do a lesson plan, all of that available in my stand store. Thank you guys for watching this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and good luck on your exam.